Hello, welcome everybody. If you could take your seats, we'll get started. Welcome to our friends here in the store and also those viewing online. I'm Elaine Petrocelli. No, I'm not. Elaine couldn't join us today, so if you can just imagine somebody about 3 feet shorter and about 10 times smarter, we'll all be just fine. I just want to mention that there are 6 people here today who are going to be the BP All Stars. So it takes 6 people to replace Elaine. So I just wanted to mention that going in. I'm Jonathan Spencer. I'm the assistant manager here at Book Passage and also a member of our events team. And I've been greatly honored to be the MC for today's holiday book talk, which I know everybody looks forward to every year. I'm going to start off with some books right now, and then I'm going to also turn this over to Deirdre after myself, and we'll be moving right along because we have a lot to show you. First off, I should mention that I'm the history and mystery guy here, so I'm going to start with some mysteries. Okay. How many people here have read the Thursday Murder Club books? Okay, wonderful. It's a good start. This is Richard Osman's latest. It's a new series. It's called We Solve Murders. It is not a cozy retirement community in England kind of story. It's a globe-trotting mystery and thriller about a father-in-law and a daughter-in-law who investigate murders. One is the father-in-law is a retired investigator, kind of bored with his life, wandering around town with his dictaphone, noting where the cat is and what time the pub closes, who's cheating on the quiz. Basically, he's had it with adrenaline, and he doesn't seem to want to live on it anymore. Now, his daughter-in-law is a high-level security consultant working for a famous author. As Richard Osman in his dry wit often says something witty, he said she's the most famous author in the world except for Lee Child. So anyway, it's a wonderful story because basically she's on an island with this wonderful author, and a dead body drops in their lap, and hilarity ensues, and who does the daughter-in-law Amy call her father-in-law Steve? So it's a globe-trotting, wonderful, dry-witted, fantastic mystery for the holidays. Okay, now we're talking about The Waiting. This is Michael Connelly's latest, wonderful, the exact opposite of a thrilling mystery globetrotting. It is a police procedural set in Los Angeles, contemporary. It is a Renee Ballard and Bosch novel. I say Bosch without a first name because it is both Bosches. It is Harry Bosch and it is Maddie Bosch. So it's a wonderful combination of Michael Connelly's wonderful universe of books. It's called The Waiting. It's a fantastic story about a cold case unit, which is led by Renee Ballard, and it involves several different concurring storylines, mostly having to do with cases that have recently become solvable because of DNA technology. So something pops up. Let's say you did 23andMe, and a relative may have been somebody who did something wrong, and it kind of pops up, and they start investigating. But there's 3 concurrent storylines that are really worth watching in this one. The first is Renee is not very well liked in her position at the police department. She has political enemies, and one of the things that's interesting about this is that she loses her badge and gun while surfing. She's a surfer, and they get robbed from her car while she's surfing. If she tells the department that she's lost it, she's fired. So she has to hire Harry to find her missing ID. Harry's daughter, meanwhile, has very much wanted to become a volunteer for the cold case unit, and she has brought a mystery to Renee, and I'm going to tease you and say that it is one of the deepest and darkest mysteries and secrets of Los Angeles in the 40s. Fantastic read, addictive. We passed this around amongst everybody on the store, and it was returned in one day and back onto the next guy. The Waiting, wonderful. All righty. So we've got Louise Penny, The Gray Wolf. This is the latest in the Armand Gamache series, Inspector Gamache. It is less a Three Pines mystery than it is a kind of a international mystery, kind of a thriller. It starts in Three Pines, but it spreads all over Quebec and includes Washington, D.C. and the Vatican. So there's a lot of things. Now, the link up of this is fascinating. It is actually an extension of one of her first books, A Beautiful Mystery, which involves that wonderful monastery in the deep woods, and the mystery and the people that he encountered there come back into his life in a strange and interesting way. There's never anything more pleasurable to read during the wintertime, especially, than a great read like Louise Penny's The Gray Wolf. And that title refers to the wolf. The between each the one you feed is the one that dictates your life. You know, the hungry wolf or the quiet wolf. Anyway, The Gray Wolf, fantastic. From Louise Penny. I'm going to shift into history. So this is Every Valley by Charles King. There's a funny story about this with me. I was at a book rep meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the rep from the publisher stood up and said, "Now, this is going to be something that nobody would ever want to read, but they have to." And I said, "Hey, I actually love this stuff." So it is about George Friedrich Handel. It is about the writing of the Messiah. And it is not just about it's not just a story about how one composes a massive piece of music. It's also about the times. It's about the history of the area and the economy, the royal intrigues, the affairs, the various personalities that intervened in his life. So it's about the writing. The subtitle is "The Desperate Lives and Troubled Times That Made Handel's Messiah." It is my favorite pick of the holidays. Fantastic read. Charles King, wonderful, wonderful historian. I'm going to slip into a memoir here, Al Pacino's Sonny Boy. I don't really read Hollywood biographies very much. I don't find them very compelling and usually not very deep. This one is deep. He's a method actor who probably wasn't meant to be a movie star. He was meant to be a stage actor, and he got caught up in a different life. And it shows here in his hardscrabble upbringing. His theories about Shakespeare and about Richard III are talked about a great deal. He has a wonderful documentary called "Looking for Richard." Anyway, it's his first memoir, and it's something really exciting. It's more than just what you've seen in interviews. If you have a fan of somebody who's a really into acting, into the personality of a great actor, Sonny Boy is a great read, and it's a terrific present for the person in your life who loves movies. I'm racing through here. I'm going to move on to a new memoir from the late Alexei Navalny, Patriot. This was not intended to be a posthumous memoir, as many of you know. He started it after he was poisoned in 2020, and he intended just to write about his experience, his life, and then, of course, he was jailed, and a lot of it was written when he was in jail and submitted through channels as his diaries. The thing that I found most interesting about Navalny is that he's not what you expect him to be. He's witty and funny. He's got that dark Russian humor that kind of just takes you by surprise, and it just kind of brings you to your knees a little bit. Gallows humor, but great wit, and also a little frankness that you might not expect. I mean, he started off on the far left and started far right, excuse me, and ended up on the left. And it's just an uplifting read. It's touching, it's heartfelt, and it's also informative. It's quite something about a man we lost all too soon. So, Alexei Navalny, Patriot. Before I start these, I'm going to mention The Siege by Ben Macintyre. So Ben Macintyre is a historian who writes like a novelist. This is about a 10-day siege of the Iranian embassy in London in the 1980s at the same time as the hostage crisis in Tehran. And it is a TikTok of the behind-the-scenes stories that happened during that. So Ben Macintyre, whom you may know from Operation Mincemeat and also Prisoners of the Castle, he writes fantastic. Basically, it reads like it couldn't possibly be true. And this is just no exception. So a 6-day hostage crisis and the daring special forces operation that shocked the world. If you're into history and a little more modern than World War II, which is what he primarily focuses on, and also the Soviet era, this is a great read, and Ben Macintyre is one of the best writers of that type of genre. I highly recommend it. And I'm going to close with Dave Eggers, my little section here. So first I'm going to talk about The Eyes and the Impossible. So this is not a new book. This is something we've had for a little while now. And it's just amazing during the holidays. We wanted to bring it back again. So The Eyes and the Impossible is about a free dog who roams a unnamed city park near the ocean. We can guess which it is. And one of the things that's fascinating about it is he kind of is the eyes of the park. He goes around every day, and his name is Johannes, and he goes around and reports the news back to the 3 wise old bison. And it's just a great story for adults to read to kids, a great stories for adults to read and just have a wonderful feeling. This gift edition is one of 2 editions we have. I love it. It's a woodcut edition that Dave put together specially. It's got gilt pages and these amazing pieces of art that he did with a partner. And the thing about it is he hand painted the dog into each one. So it's just a fantastic thing. So The Eyes and the Impossible won the Caldecott or Newbery? Newbery Award. So it's just a fantastic read from Dave Eggers, a local treasure. And another thing that Dave has gifted us with for the holidays is these series of short novels that I'm going to start with a story. So When I was first starting to work here in 2021, my friend Nancy came up to the front desk on a late November evening as we were about to close and said, "Do you have 20 minutes?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "Read this, The Museum of Rain." It was brand new, a little novella, a little short story from Dave that absolutely grabbed me, and I gave it to everybody I knew that holiday. It's about an older gentleman in his 70s who goes to a family reunion on the central coast of California, and he's kind of at the mercy of young kids running around his ankles trying to find something interesting to do, and he's the one who's saddled with it while everybody's drinking over in the corner. And he ends up deciding to distract them by taking them on a long hike through the hills to a place that may or may not exist anymore called the Museum of Rain. It's magical, it's beautiful, and I said to myself, what a joy. I hope he does this again someday. And then, a couple years later, he did. He came up with a second one called In the Honor of Your Presence. I'm just going to talk about a few of these. And then a couple years later, he started filling that out with 4 more books. So that it's called the Forgetters series. They're wonderful little stocking stuffers, and the one that I really want to talk about is The Comebacker. This is about a reporter on the beat for the San Francisco Giants. And he's kind of down in the dumps because he's got a lot of bad news to report. Things are not going well, and one of the things that excites him is just something different. One day, a young pitcher is called up from the farm system, and he's erudite and talkative and has these amazing observations. And all of a sudden, he finds he has all this to write about, and it kind of gathers around all the press corps, and they all start enlivening themselves. The team comes to life and everything. It's just a sweet little story. And a love thing about Dave is that he always takes you where you never expect to go. It doesn't end with the way you think it does. For the baseball fan in you or just a great short story fan, I always recommend The Comebacker. But the other ones are called The Keeper of Ornaments. And there's going to be one more after this one, but this is the one that is a sequel to The Museum of Rain. It's called Where the Candles Are Kept. And I haven't read it yet. I'm saving it for Christmas Eve. All righty. So now I'm going to turn the desk over to the mic, over to Deirdre, and she's going to go on about some more wonderful all-stars.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. What a wonderful treat to have you all here at Book Passage. It's so good to see you all. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start with my very favorite Christmas book this year, Amy Tan. You all remember Amy Tan from the Joy Luck Club. Amy is one of these multi-talented people. She's a writer and she is an illustrator, and she's become a very, very proficient bird illustrator. She writes stories about the birds in her backyard here in Marin County, and she does these incredible illustrations. Allison will be showing you some of them. So they're beautiful. The stories are delicious. They're just really special. This is just a gift that just keeps on giving. It's everything you could possibly want. Wonderful writing, beautiful illustrations from a real all-star person. Amy Tan, Backyard Bird Chronicles. I'm sort of the cats and cooking person here today. One of my favorite books this year also is Cats of the World. This is a travel log, and you think it's just a book about cats. It is not. Hannah Shaw, however, is a true expert in cats. She wrote a book a number of years ago about how to save infant kittens. And I bought the book, and my partner and I used that book, and what we did was we fostered over 200 kittens. And so I'm a total Hannah Shaw lover. When she did that book, she met a guy named Andrew. She and Andrew fell in love, and they took an incredible trip around the world and took pictures of cats. And it sounds like it's just going to be a silly little cat book. It's actually not. Her writing is really good about culture and how different cultures treat cats, which is really indicative of how they treat each other. So there's some beautiful pictures. Recently, I was in Turkey, and it was amazing to me how incredibly beautifully they take care of the cats in Turkey, and this really indicates it. Previously, I was in Morocco. Oh, here's Italy, of course, Italy. I was in Morocco, and it's quite a different scene in Morocco. So this is really something that's special for people who are travel buffs and people who are cat lovers. Special, special book. We're going to present you a lot of books today, and you may say to yourself, I'm totally overwhelmed by all of this. If that's the case, a really great gift for you to think about giving to your friends and family is one of two programs that we have here at Book Passage. One is called First Edition Club. First Edition Club, we select a book, one book every month that we think has real legs. That's something that's going to be very special down the road. For example, this year we selected James, which won the National Book Award. We also selected Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich, another high-winning award book. And what we do is we have these books signed by the authors so that you get a first edition. It's signed. It's a monthly membership. It comes in the mail to your giftee. It's a really wonderful way to give somebody who loves literature a real possibility of reading new and exciting stuff. We also have another program that's especially good for your kids and grandkids and anybody else on your list. We call it Aunt Lydia as our shorthand, because one day a woman came in and said, I'd like to give my nephew a book every month. And she was named Lydia, so it became Aunt Lydia's Book Club. So we select a book based on your child or your giftee's preferences, and we ship it out to them gift wrapped every month or every 2 months, whatever you like. Beautifully done, perfectly picked. So there's another possibility for you. You'll know Ann Patchett, right? She's the one who wrote Bel Canto. Have you read Bel Canto? Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing story. It's just one of the great love stories of all time, in my opinion. So much different kinds of love in this book. So what Ann Patchett has done now is she's annotated this book. Now, this is a beautifully done annotation. It is not an annotation where she's fixing how she wrote the book. It's more an annotation about what she was thinking about, how she was thinking about the book, how she was thinking about, for example, there's an opera singer in the book, very main character. And so what she did was she started listening to opera and what it meant to her and how it changed her and how it changed the way she thought about the book and how the relationship with the terrorists changed as a result of listening to this opera singer sing. So this kind of annotation you can see, for those of you on, let me show on camera. It's just really special because you really get an inside look, like an intimate look at what an author who wrote such a profound book was actually thinking about as she wrote. On to cooking. Ottolenghi. We all love the Ottolenghi books. They're beautiful, they're exquisite, and sometimes they're really complicated. This Ottolenghi book called Comfort is his most accessible book. I've actually been able to really put together a couple of meals based on the recipes in this book. Now, in the past, I found his recipes a little daunting, but this book, I don't know, it just seems like really kind of much easier. And for those of us who like to have a cookbook or a giftee who would like a cookbook that has a little bit of a different flavor, Ottolenghi is definitely the way to go. So this one, Comfort by Ottolenghi. Now, some of you have family members that like to grill, right? You send them out to the grill and they come back and the steak is like overdone. This book will help all of your grillers in your life. Tyler Florence, y'all know who he is. A local guy, Mill Valley, has had restaurants here, etc. Tyler Florence's book is really, really a nice book because it gives you ways of thinking about grilling that's just a little bit different. Not only meats, but vegetables as well. Beautifully illustrated, very thoughtful, and a really super good gift for the grillers in your life. I used to say the dads, but you know what? We all like to grill, don't we? And we have signed copies. Here's a 2-for-1 special, a lot of fun in cooking. So, start with Stephen Colbert. Stephen and his wife are hilarious. And the recipes are actually kind of good. I really rather liked some of them. The cover itself, there's a picture of his wife ladling soup into a bowl right on top of Stephen's hands. And sort of that's the way the whole book goes. They're from the South. They're originally from South Carolina. So a lot of the recipes have that Southern flavor, which is a little different from those of us who grew up and live out here. But a lot of them are really fun recipes. And because they're mostly about humor and fun. The recipes are quite easy. So this would be a good book for somebody you'd like to get them to start cooking a little bit and they're kind of a little resistant, is a good way to start. And on the fun level, Willie and Annie Nelson's Cannabis Cookbook. I mean, what could be more fun for the kids or grandkids in your life who love a little cannabis? You know, it's interesting to me. Willie's in his 80s and he's like super popular with all the young people right now. I just love that about him. The recipes are fun, they're funny, they're different. They're not exactly what, you and I might cook, but a lot of the young people love this book. It's super popular with them. Now, one of the things that's different about cookbooks nowadays than they were like even 5 years ago is cookbooks are no longer just cookbooks. You can go online and get all these recipes. It's sort of, so why buy a cookbook? Because nowadays the cookbooks are quite different. And what good cookbooks do is they tell a story. And they talk about, the authors, the good ones, write stories about culture, about what's going on in the world at the time, what cooking and food is doing to bridge cultural divides, etc. And this is one of my very favorite books this year, The Jewish Holiday Table. It is a story of the Jewish diaspora with food. So what she did was she went to all different cultures and she took the most beautiful recipes and pictures of the foods of varying countries around the world and how differently every country celebrates the holidays. So for you, if you know the word mishpacha, you know you need to have this book, okay? My other favorite cookbook this year, and I've used this quite a bit, is called The Big Vegan Flavor. Let me just preface this by saying I am so not a vegan. I'm not even a vegetarian. But this book has opened my eyes to the idea that vegetables can be just like sublimely delicious. She teaches you how to make vegetables special. So what she does is she teaches you how to figure out flavoring to make vegetables more, not just, just rich and delicious and kind of divine. Love this book. It's a book that will help a beginning cook really learn the basics of cooking, but it will also be appropriate for somebody who has a lot of experience cooking and wants to really boost their game on the vegetable side. It's really a special book. And between all the cookbooks I showed you today, in some ways, this is the one I've used the most. And between this and the Jewish Holiday Book, super favorites of mine. So I wish you all delicious food, wonderful holiday. And I'd like to introduce to you Cheryl. Cheryl's our one of our events team coordinators, and she's going to show you her favorites.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Cheryl Bronstein. I'm one of the event coordinators here. And if you've come to an author event, you've probably seen me. This is one of my favorite events of the year because we get to talk about books. Now, all of us who work here obviously love to read. We love to read books, but even more than that, we love to talk about books and talk about all our favorite things about books. So this is such a special day, and we're so glad that you joined us. So I'm going to start with my book, the book that I find so exciting for this season, and it's kind of like a treasure. This is it. It's the Diane Keaton fashion book. This is an incredible, beautiful coffee table book or just reading book with all beautiful photographs. But let me show you the most special thing about this book is that it is signed by her. It's autographed. We are, at least as far as I know, the only store, definitely in the state of California and maybe in the country, that has this book that is signed. And she told her publisher she wanted to give signed copies to one of her favorite bookstores in San Francisco, Book Passage. So we are thrilled to have this. Again, I don't know if our friends online can see it, but just beautiful photos of all her incredible fashion. It's just a lovely collection, and you would be so honored to have this in your home. Or what an incredible gift to give to someone that you love. Thank you, Nancy. That is true. We all love shoes. Okay, folks, Ina Garten, she finally came out with her memoir. I know we were all waiting for it. We all love her cookbooks. We see her on TV, we've read about her. Now she's provided her memoir. And this is a fun book. It's pretty easy to read. It's a pretty fast read. And we start to learn about things that we just didn't know about her, kind of about her childhood. Her mom was not that loving mom. I think there were some food issues there. Her relationship with Jeffrey, I'm not going to say anything, but there's some bumps in the road. So, anyways, this is a real fun book. If you love Ina Garten, definitely pick this one up. You will not be disappointed. It's a really interesting read, and again, a quick read. And this is another food-related book, Stanley Tucci, What I Ate for 1 Year. We all know Stanley Tucci, through his acting and directing and writing. This is a fun book because he goes through a whole year and kind of catalogs what he ate, what the food was, who he ate it with. And it's a memoir in the sense that he kind of talks about, things that disappointing things, tragedies that happened during that year, and what he was eating, how food helped him, how food was able to bring him close to another person that he hadn't been close to. So this is an interesting read, a great nonfiction. It's memoir, but it's food related, and we learn a lot about him. And, as with all Stanley Tucci books, you laugh and you cry. So again, Stanley Tucci, What I Ate for 1 Year. And then we have Revenge of the Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And we had a big event with him a couple months ago at Dominican University. Hopefully some of you were able to join us for that. Malcolm Gladwell is one of the greatest minds of our time. He is an incredible writer and comes out with books every few years. This one is a very interesting book. He kind of talks about what happens in our society that tips us to another point? What changes the psyche in the American culture? There's some really interesting research in here. One of the things I found very fascinating was the word Holocaust and how it didn't really not come into the American vocabulary until the 1970s. And there was one pivotal event that kicked it into the American vocabulary. So those are the types of things that he researches. There's lots of things about stop and frisk, things about vaccination rates. Again, this is a great nonfiction read for people who, love to learn about modern history and, are interested in American society and movements and that. So again, this is Revenge of the Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. Okay, now we have Bake Club. All right, do we have any fans of Milk Bar bakery products out there? Milk Bar, when I say that word, I'm a huge fan. We don't have a shop here in San Francisco. There's many in New York, and then there's one in LA and one in Vegas. All right, well, if you have never had a Milk Bar product, please do not die before you have one. It definitely should be on your bucket list. It is outstandingly one of the best things I've ever had in my life. Now, Christina Tossi, founder of Milk Bar, has come up with a new cookbook, Bake Club. And this is a really fun cookbook, all kinds of wonderful recipes that you cherish the time with your family and friends. If you have children, you get in the kitchen with them, you get this book dirty, and you bake. And so this is a great, great book, wonderful for the holidays. We have signed copies because we did have an event with her. So, that's something to think about. Again, a wonderful cookbook, great gift, or great for your own kitchen. Bake Club by Christina Tossi. And finally, I'm going to end with one of my favorite books of the season. This is a small volume, very easy to read. It's called Vanishing Treasures by Catherine Rundle. Now, this is a book about, it profiles, I think, about 20 different animals that exist on our planet now that you might not know about that are just incredible. She talks about the Greenland shark. It lives at the deepest depths of the ocean, and it can live for 500 plus years. That's normal. Now, can you imagine that that animal was swimming when Columbus was sailing around? So, and that's just one of the animals. And she talks about the American woodland frog, a little frog that every winter lives up in the Northeast. It will use the water in its body to freeze solid into an ice cube. No biologic functions at all. It stays like that through the winter, and then come spring, it dethaws and hops around, mates, and goes on with its life. So this is an incredible book. What I love about this book, it's wonderful for adults, but it's also very appropriate for children. I would say maybe ages 10 and up who love animals. And, the type of kid that'll say, hey, Mom, did you know that? Blah, 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 because this is just filled with facts. Again, a wonderful book, very easy to read. You can sit down and read it in one day or, a couple hours. Vanishing Treasures by Catherine Rundle. And now I'm going to turn it over to Allison. Allison Bainbridge is going to take over and share her favorite books of the season.
You saw me, I had a big stack. I'm going to go quick though. My name's Allison, as Cheryl said, and I have the privilege of being a host here, and a manager. I've done buying of gift items and, chief cook and bottle washer, basically everything. And it's been my extreme pleasure to do that for a decade. One of the first things I started was I was a gift buyer here. And so I have a soft spot for our gift items. If you are looking for something to pair with a book or someone who maybe isn't a big reader, I just want to hold up a few things that we have. We have amazing puzzles. We have great little Christmas things like socks and tea towels. So if you want to find something really special, we have gift items here as well as in our back building. And I'm going to go next to my favorite genre, which is fiction. I am a big fiction and historical fiction. I'm going to start with someone that is one of our favorites here at the bookstore, Amor Towles. How many people here have read Amor Towles? I figured. This is a different book for him. He digressed a little bit from novels, and he wrote short stories. I happen to be a voracious short story reader. I love short stories. Some people say they don't like them, but what I'm finding is these days people are very interested in short stories because you can read one, put it down, pick it up the next day. You don't have to remember what you were reading the night before. And so his are almost like little novellas. He is such an amazing writer that if you love him, even if you're not a huge short story writer, you will love the short stories in this book. And for those of you who read Rules of Civility and wondered what happened to some of the characters in there, there's a story in here that will tell you what happened. So highly recommend that. Okay, for those of you like me that were Cher lovers, in fact, one of her songs was a song that my husband and I danced to for our first dance. Just Sonny and Cher was so big when I was young, and I loved her. She came out with a memoir, and I just want to show you something. You know, most people have a biography at the end. Hers just says, Cher is a global icon. So it's fantastic. We have an event tomorrow with her. I think it's sold out. It's at the Curran, but you can still be part of her journey with her book. So I highly recommend that. Okay, I get chills when I hold this up. Some of you may have already read it. This is James. As was mentioned earlier, first edition, it won the National Book Award. As far as I'm concerned, it should have won everything this year. I am a huge fan of James. It is so beautifully written. Basically, it is a story of Huckleberry Finn from Jim the slave's point of view. It is so gorgeously written that you can listen to it, you can read it, and over again, and you will get something new every time. And I think every person who likes to read should read this book. It is amazing. So I highly recommend this, and we do have some signed copies. So if you are lucky enough to go out and grab one, this is a fantastic gift. I also want to just say his wife is a fantastic author, and she wrote a book called Colored Television that is so snappy and satirical. They are such an literate power couple, is what I like to say. So, James, Colored Television. Okay, one of my favorite authors that I've been recommending for decades is Louise Erdrich. And when I first started recommending her when I started at the bookstore about 10 years ago, I was surprised how many people hadn't heard of her. Her books are so beautiful. Most of them focus on Native American stories because she has a Native American background. She also owns a small bookstore, so more points for her for that. Mighty Red is her latest book, and we picked it as part of our first edition book club, even though usually we pick debuts, but we loved this so much that we had to choose it. It's a story about a young man who's in North Dakota, and he decides he needs to get married. He's inheriting land, and he wants to marry this woman who's very different than him, this young woman. She's sort of a goth person, and she has a best friend who is in love with her as well. And so it's the story of how Louise usually writes things with about community and family and struggling and love. And so I highly recommend it, and I highly recommend if you haven't read anything, go back and read everything of hers. Okay, Sipsworth, another first edition, and I have to say, I got to host this author, Simon Van Buie, when he was here, and I developed such an author crush on him, and my husband's okay with it. He understands that every so often I come home from an event and I say, okay, I'm in love with another author. He came up to the podium, and he was wearing a little bow tie and a trench coat and a snappy little suit. He's from England, and he had the most divine accent, and he told this wonderful, sweet story about a woman who befriends a mouse. And it sounds silly. It sounds like fantasy. It is not. It is just what we need in this day and age. A tale of friendship and, finding a relationship that couldn't possibly work, but that does. So another one of those books that when people say, I want something that's not too heavy, this is perfect. Okay, this book, There Are Rivers in the Sky. I just listened to this book, and that brings up for me something I wanted to talk about. Do many of you listen to audiobooks? Yeah, so more and more people are listening to audiobooks, and there's a wonderful way you can support independent bookstores and still listen to audiobooks. It's called Libro FM, and we have information about it up at our counters or online for those of you watching virtually. It's really important that we still support our community bookstores. So if you are listening to audiobooks, look up Libro FM. So I just finished listening to this because I always like to have a book that I'm listening to and that I'm reading. And this book was beautiful. It's one of those books that's very lyrical. And the main character is a character that's similar to Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead, for those of you who've read that book. It's three characters that are in different times, focused on in the Middle East, on water and a raindrop that brings them together. And so, again, sounds like fantasy. It's not fantasy. It's beautiful. It's historical. And the characters are described so beautifully that you really care for all of them. Oh, sorry, that's The Rivers. Here, we'll hold it up. The Rivers in the Sky, and it's by Elif Shafak, Shafak. Okay, so Ruth Reichel, who we all know from her amazing columns in the New York Times, for being a food critic, for writing incredible memoirs, she decided that she wanted to do something different. So she wrote a novel. And this is one of those fun novels that takes you away. It takes place in Paris. It's called The Paris Novel. And it's about a young woman in her 20s who didn't have a very good relationship with her mother. They were very different. She was kind of more straight-laced and Her mom was, kind of more wild, but her mom passes away, and she leaves in her will, she leaves money to her daughter with a contingency that she says, you need to take this money and you need to go to Paris and you need to have an adventure. And so that's what she does. She goes, and of course, because it's Ruth Reichel, there's amazing food involved. So you'll get your taste of that. You'll get beautiful fashion. You'll get, romance, everything you want in a good novel. So the perfect thing to curl up by the fire and read on one of these winter evenings. A great gift again, Paris novel. Last couple quick things. We have a really fun gift book for people who are looking for something kind of quirky. It's called Accidentally Wes Anderson Adventures, and they're just going to show some pictures in the back. It is just a really fun book about, Wes Anderson and what's inside his brain. For those of you who are fans of Wes Anderson, he does fantastic and quirky movies. And so he's come out with a book that is really fun, and it talks about all kinds of different places in his quintessential Wes Anderson way. So it's just one of those fun ones. It says in the back, join us on a visual venture to every continent, exploring the most stunning and unusual places on the planet. Of course, that's, according to Wes Anderson, but it's very fun, great pictures, highly recommend that. And before I do the last book, I just want to let people know that we have our annual Giving Tree program going on. Every year, we have a little giving tree at our counters, and that program is something we've been doing for many years. In fact, I used to bring my daughters here now in their late 20s when they were little girls, and they would pick out a little tag on the tree and pick out a book. And that goes to people who are kids who are disadvantaged in Marin County and who would not normally receive a book. And so the joy that they feel when they get a book it's just overwhelming. So if you're interested in giving to that program, you can do so online, you can do so at the register, you can pick a book out, or you can donate money. And it's a really great feeling to know that when you're buying a book that you can donate a little money, and someone less fortunate will get a book as well. So highly recommend that. Okay, the last book I'm going to do is Water, Water, Poems by Billy Collins. So I love literature and reading, and yet I always struggled with poetry. And I felt like I didn't always get it, and I felt guilty for not getting it, and then I felt bad, and so the whole thing was not good. So I just said, I'm just going to not read poetry. And then about a decade ago, I went to a Billy Collins event at Dominican, and I was enthralled. I just fell in love with him. I also fell in love with him. I met him. Okay, another author crush. I have many of them. But he is so charming, and his poetry is so simple. It's about everyday things. He writes about ordinary things in an extraordinary way is the way I like to describe him. So if you know anyone who's interested in poetry or who struggle but wants to be interested in poetry, I'd highly recommend Water, Water, and anything that Billy Collins has done in the past. So thank you so much for your attention. And now I'm going to turn it over to Caleb, who is our head adult buyer here.
All right. Hello, everybody. The first book I'm going to talk about is a book of fiction. It's called Polo Stan by Neil Stephenson. And Neil Stephenson historically has been a writer of speculative fiction, science fiction, those wonderful, nerdy books with all the amazing details about science. And he actually also has a background in the tech industry as well. So very smart person, very knowledgeable in what he writes about and how he writes. This book is a little bit of a departure for him. It's not science fiction, it's historical fiction. It really reads like a thriller. So it's set in the 1930s at the dawn of the atomic age. And we follow the protagonist, Dawn Rabe Jornberg, or is her name Aurora? She has ties, in the U.S. and also in the Soviet Union. So we go back and forth between, Chicago, the American West, D.C., again, the Soviet Union. And it's just this beautiful book with short, snappy chapters. You can see this is a normal sort of sized book. You can actually get through this quickly, which is, again, a departure for Stevenson. But it's just a wonderful read, and it has all of these amazing subtle details about science and physics at the time. 3 chapters in a row end with the word balloons. So what might balloons have to do with physics in the 30s and, the atomic age that's coming into being then? Polo Stand by Neil Stevenson. All right, next, Bay Area Wildlife, An Irreverent Guide by Jeff Miller with illustrations by wonderful author-illustrator Obie Kaufman. If you're familiar with, the California Field Atlas, the deserts, forests, coasts of California, those books by Obie Kaufman, there's some wonderful illustrations here as well. So you can see there's both kind of the illustrated nature and then kind of some fun facts as well. This book just has, is really local to the Bay Area, but also there's a ton about Marin. It's, fact filled, but it's also kind of quirky and fun and irreverent as well. Wonderful nature gift for your loved ones. All right. How many folks have read Braiding Sweetgrass out there? Yeah. So Robin Wall Kimmerer has another book. This one's kind of a slim little volume. It's a beautiful little book called The Serviceberry. You can see it has some nice illustrations in here. It's kind of just a short, quick read about reciprocity, about, the interconnectedness of nature and, an interconnected economy in a way that we can be. So a nice little read and a wonderful gift called The Serviceberry, Robin Wall Kimmerer. All right, next, a couple of sports books. Why We Love Football. This is by Joe Poznansky. He also has written other works. He's written about baseball, written about other sports. But for the football lover in your life, this has a history and 100 moments. So it follows 100 different, very discrete, short little essays about the wonderful football moments that your football lover giftee might have loved. Why We Love Football. Next, on a similar vein, the Basketball 100. This is actually centered around 100 players rather than moments, but it sort of profiles on 100 of the greatest basketball players of all time. A little bit thicker, and it's by the folks at The Athletic, now owned by the New York Times, which, really are carrying the torch of long-form sports journalism and keeping that alive. So this is another great gift book. We have other sports books as well if you have folks in your life who might like those. But 2 of my favorites, Basketball 100 and Why We Love Football. Next, this is a memoir. It's called All the Beauty in the World by Patrick Bringley. It came out last year and it has just been released in paperback. So, if you're traveling at all or shipping, this is a nice gift that's just a little easier, smaller to manage. This book was written by someone who was kind of up and coming in sort of the literary scene in New York in his 20s, had a bright career ahead of him, and then he experienced some personal tragedy. And he decided he needed a change. He needed to just contemplate and be able to just have some silent time for himself. So he got a job at the Met, the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art, which has, treasures, wonderful artistic treasures there. And, he was just walking through this beauty every single day, seeing the art, seeing people from all over the world visit. And it's just this really beautiful, quiet, meditative book that's about his experience there. Highly recommend. All the Beauty in the World. All right, finally for me, we have The Letters of Oliver Sacks. You may be familiar with the man who mistook his wife for a hat, but Oliver Sacks is just kind of one of the giants of the medical field in recent years. And this has his letters to many of his patients, the people who wrote to him about their, unusual sort of experiences. But it also has letters from his younger days when he was, riding around in motorcycles, exploring the U.S. for the first time. And it's just, it's a human book. It's about his life, and he wrote to so many people. It's a wonderful collection and a wonderful gift. Just a joy to read. Letters by Oliver Sacks. All right, and now we are going to transition and talk about some children's and YA titles. So I have Natalie who's going to come up and speak with you about that.
I wish I was that tall. Okay. Hi, I'm Natalie. I work over on the kids section. I will say I'm going to talk a little bit quicker because we're running out of time. So if you have any questions about any of these books, I will talk your ear off next door. So I am going to go in a little bit of opposite age order as well. So I think some of these books start on the last page. But the first one that I have for you is When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson. Jandy Nelson is a very, very fantastic author for YA. We say this is about 14 years and up. It follows 3 siblings who live in Northern California, wine country, and this enigmatic girl with rainbow-colored hair who lives carefree comes into their lives when they are struggling with family troubles and just individuality troubles, and she connects with each one of these siblings and teaches them kind of a new way to live and a new way to approach life and to appreciate the little moments. It's a very creative and artistic book, but we love this book. It is When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson. Up next, somewhat of a funny title, is The Great Cool Ranch Dorito in the Sky. So this is a boy who named a constellation after a Dorito. How he knows the flavor of the Dorito, I am not sure. But this was a finalist for the National Book Award, and it deals with some heavier themes. It's a bit of a difficult read, but it's about a young boy who's struggling with mental health issues and body image issues, and he finds solace in his art and creating these comics, and he just learns that these kind of creative outlets is what helps him heal. And I think it's also a very important book for young boys to read, because when we think about mental health issues and what you're going through as a teenager, most of those books are catered towards younger girls, which is fantastic. But we also need to have some boys up there in the representation too, to let them know that they're not alone and everybody has felt this way before. So this one is The Great Cool Ranch Dorito in the Sky. Up next, we have one for about 8 to 12 years old, and this is called The Sherlock Society. This is by author James Ponti. He's done City Spies as well. That's in that same realm. But this one is for when the kids who are 8 to 12 have finished Nancy Drew and have finished the Hardy Boys and need something to fill that hole that those leave. And these are the grandchildren of Sherlock Holmes. They gather with their friends and they decide we're going to look at old cold cases and we're going to solve them. So this first book takes place in the Everglades, where Al Capone did some shady dealings. So this is the first in a brand new series. It is super fun, great pick for the mystery lovers and all of those young kids. This one is The Sherlock Society. And up next is a fun title. This is also for ages 8 to 12. It comes from SNL alum and Weird Barbie herself, Kate McKinnon. It is called The Millicent Quibb School of Etiquette for Young Ladies of Mad Science. So this is a great, fun, quirky book for all of the kids who love to get into these wacky adventures. It is a really sweet book, too, where they get kicked out of all of these etiquette schools, and they went, you know what, our talents lie elsewhere, and they lie in the crazy experiments that go haywire. And they find out that in their town, they're needed to help save it. So why not embrace those weird, strange traits that you might have and put it to good use? It's also filled with these fun, wacky drawings and diagrams throughout. And it's just a really fun read. Again, it's the first in the series. It's for all the kids who love humor and who just love these crazy adventures that don't make a lot of sense to adults anymore, but they make tons of sense to the kids. So this is The Millicent Quibb School of Etiquette for Mad Science. And up next is called The Bletchley Riddle by Ruta Sepetys and Steve Shankin. Both are fantastic authors, just forces of authors when it comes to historical fiction. This is for about 10 years old and up, but these two siblings just happen to stumble across the Bletchley facility in Bletchley Park, which is a code-breaking facility during World War II. So they decide, you know what? We can help them. And this book is also filled with just amazing photographical evidence from that time. It is like newspaper clippings, all of these really cool things where you're kind of code breaking with the kids throughout it. But this is, again, a great read for the kids who are fascinated with wars and history and just code breaking and puzzles in general. This is a fantastic, fantastic read for that set of children. And again, Rita Sepetys, we just love her over on the other side. She is fantastic at writing historical fiction. So this is The Bletchley Riddle. And up next, you might have heard her name a few times, but Catherine Rundell has also come out with a new kids book. This one is for, again, 8 to 12, and this one's called Impossible Creatures. Now, she has kind of a theme of trying to highlight these endangered species. So these two kids are traveling from each fantastical island to island, and they are trying to save magic and trying to also save these creatures that are just going extinct. So you get to follow them along through their adventures with, again, fantastic illustrations throughout. And for all of the kids who love fantasy, I was one of them, I still am one of them, they have a complete bestiary in the back too. So that's a really fun guide that kids can always go back to and read about these really cool creatures that are very, very prevalent in most mythology. So this is a great book for all of the fantasy lovers. Fantastic author. It's going to be another series as well. So this one is Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell. And up next is a fantastic gift book, which is very, very big, but it is called Maps. So Deirdre is thankfully going to be walking by and showing you what some of it looks like. But each page is a different country, and it has different landmarks. It has different people that are famous from there. It has really cool like animals and the cattle that's around, different herbs that are grown there, the oceans and what kind of animals inhabit the oceans around them. I love this book. This is great for all of your adventurous kids, the world travelers. I say this one's actually fine for all ages too. I once had a customer come in saying, "I'm buying this for my 40-year-old son." And I go, that's perfect, because I also always say I feel like Indiana Jones would love this book. And that's what makes me want to buy it, because if Indiana Jones thinks it's great, then I do too. So this is Maps, and this is just a wonderful gift book to have. And now into the picture books. We all know Isabel Allende, and she came out with a brand new kids picture book called Perla the Mighty Dog. It is based off of her real dog, Perla. I met her. She was here, and she was so cute. She sat on one of the little kids' chairs on the other side, and I almost cried because it was just so adorable. But this is all about her owner, Nico, who is going through a tough time at school and is getting bullied. And so Perla, who's this mighty little chihuahua, is like, well, if I bark at people and I show them how powerful I am, that's usually enough to stop them. So she trains Nico, and she's training him to teach him that if he barks loud enough, then people will listen. And if he takes up the space that he's meant to take up, people will listen and stop teasing him. So it's all about coming into your power. And I mean, it's just a cute little dog too. So it's the power of friendship between a boy and his dog. We love this book. We love Isabel Allende. We also have it in Spanish on the other side. So this is Perla the Mighty Dog. Up next is Big. This is another book that is the Calcutta Medal. It has the National Book Award finalist. This one is a little bit older, but this is a fantastic book, again, about coming into your space. It's all about body positivity. Deirdre is, again, running it through. All about this little girl who loves ballet, and then as she grows up, people are saying, well, you're too big to do ballet, and you don't look good doing ballet. And it hurts her, and she shows them these words have meaning, and you can't keep saying them to me because it's changing my perception of myself. So then she decides, I'm going to take up my space, and that's okay. I have fun dancing, and I'm just going to keep dancing and have fun and let you know that your words can't hurt me anymore. So what a fantastic book for kids about body positivity and learning that if you do say mean things, it does affect that person. So this one is Big. Yeah. And up next is Night Owl and Early Bird. You might remember Night Owl from a few years ago. He was the perfect candidate for night shift night because he's awake and everyone else is asleep. He finds out that he has the biggest fan in the world, which is a little early bird sparrow, and they realize that their schedules are kind of conflicting, so they have a bit of a fight. They come back together, and then you realize that we have these little blissful moments, like in the morning where I'm just going to sleep and you're just waking up, and that's when we can talk about our day. And it's just about an unlikely friendship, a revisit into this great world if they've already known it, which we have copies of the original on the other side as well. But this is Night Owl and Early Bird. And up next, we have two by Mac Barnett. These two are really fun books. One is about Santa's first Christmas and what happens when Santa gets a day off on Christmas rather than just doing Christmas Eve. So this is a really sweet book about tradition, about doing things for other people, which is what this season is all about. And then he also has a book called How Does Santa Go Down the Chimney? And this one's like, well, does he turn into fire? Does he shrink down? What happens if you don't have a chimney? And it ends with, even though I don't know how he goes down the chimney, I am so grateful that he does. So these are both great, silly books for the holidays. These are both by Mac Barnett. And last but not least is Little Hare Finds a Gift. This is all about a little hare who finds a gift without the recipient outside of her home, and she goes, man, I have to go around and find all my woodland friends and see which one it is. As she's out, she bumps into Santa, and he needs her help. So they're both riding on a sleigh and trying to find all of her friends and deliver the gifts. And she goes, you know what? I don't need anything for Christmas. This was enough. This was a really, really sweet ride. And then she wakes up Christmas morning to find, what did Santa get her other than her own little electric sleigh, so that she can go around and she can still visit all of her friends. Just a really sweet, quaint book about the joy of giving during this season. It's really, really cute. It's all about friendship. And I mean, Little Bunny and Santa team up to deliver these gifts to the woodland creatures. Such a fun story. And that is all I have for you today.
Thank you, Natalie. How about a round of applause for all our presenters today? We're at the end now. I just wanted to wrap it up by mentioning that if anybody online or if we happen to run out, you can buy these books online through our website. And also, if you indicate that you want to have an autographed copy, if one is available in the comments, we can look into that as well. For ticketed events coming up are a great opportunity for a gift as well. We have some also in-person events here at the store that I wanted to tell you about. Jacqueline Winspear will be here this Saturday at 11 o'clock, and Amy Tan will be here for a meet and greet signing opportunity and photo opportunity on December 15th. And then we have some wonderful ticketed events that we already mentioned. Cher, and she's going to be in the city. We also have Rick Steves, Chris Hayes, Bill Gates, and Geraldine Brooks talking with Michael Lewis at our various locations around the Bay, including here, Dominican University, the San Francisco Curran Theater, the Golden Gate Theater, and Calvary Presbyterian in San Francisco. What a wonderful opportunity to give a gift. And also behind you, you will notice a wonderful table where we have all the books we've been talking about on display, so you don't have to go hunting around for them. You can go ahead and shop to your heart's delight. On behalf of Elaine, who unfortunately could not be here today, and she sends her love, we just want to thank you all for being here. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas from Book Passage.